Okay, this is our 20th video, and we're going to go over two things in it. We're going to go over how to add features into Blender and ones that I recommend that you add for our class, even though we might not use them. And the second thing we're going to go over is one of those features called Dynamic Sky. By default, we can add a sky texture, which we did in this one. And so I have it looking like this. Dynamic Sky, which I've already enabled on mine, is going to give we're going to be able to generate some procedural clouds with it. There's some rough settings, but again, even though it's not a perfect tool and it's not the most vivid thing in the world, it's free, and we can set it up. There are people that sell sky tools and things like that that do some beautiful photographs and things, HDR photographs that can be used for environment mapping that are spectacular, but a lot of times those come with price tags too, because they put a lot of work into it and they want to be able to live and get paid for it. So we're going to go up to File, and we're going to go down to where it says User Preferences. Control-Alt-U is a shortcut to get there. We have another little window here, and in this, again, I've already added some stuff. So basically, if you go down to where it says Add Curve, I would add all the Add Curve, Add Mesh items. And then as we go down to animation, I went ahead and turned on all of those. If you find any of these that are not turned on, then and that are turned on, don't turn them off. Okay. Once you click on the little box for things, if it has something that pops up over here, it'll pop up instantly. Doesn't take too long for those to load. We don't need to do the development or the other camera options there, the game engine things, because we're not using that for this class. And same with the import and exports that are off at the moment. We probably don't need to use those. If we were doing things like trying to import models from other programs or things like that, turning on some of these might be very useful for us. There's lots of them. Under lighting, this is where we have the dynamic sky. You can turn that on. Creates dynamic sky for cycles, and you just click the little box. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and turn on these materials, material library, material utilities, mesh 3D print toolbox, even though we won't do 3D printing, auto mirror, and so turning on those just for possibility. I'll go ahead and enable that one. So I enabled the rest of those mesh ones already. Snap utility lines, we can do that as well. I'm going to leave off the motion tracking since we're not using that. Node Wrangler is a very useful one to make sure you have on. Even though there's booleans already with Blender, turning on some of those things could be useful as well. So I just turned on a lot of those. I'll go ahead and turn on this one, even though I probably won't use it. And then I turned on paint palettes, even though I don't think for what we're doing that will be very useful. I don't tend to like the pie menus myself, or I haven't spent enough time to gain familiarity with them, so they aren't as useful for me. So I don't turn those on. If you want to, you can try them out. If you like them, leave them enabled. If not, turn them off. We're going to go a little bit further down. Let's see. Do we need those? Do we need those? Okay, render, network render. I would love it if you guys turn that on. That way I can actually, when we're doing projects and stuff, since we're last class of the day, I can use all the computers in the lab sometimes to render a project, provided depending on what settings are there. That works better with some or not. As you can see, it has a little exclamation by it saying that, sometimes there's problems with that. But it can be a useful tool. And then, let's see, the rest of these kind of left off, so I think that's all good. You can exit it. Whatever you clicked on would be active, but the next time you open it up, those changes would not be there. You have to click Save User Settings to keep the changes. So we're going to do that. Over here in our tools menu, and I'm in object mode right now, you'll see where it says dynamic sky. And right now there's just this little section right here. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click create, and it says please select the world named dynamic 1. I'm going to go over to our properties editor. I have the little earth icon there. That's our world icon. And we're going to go right here to where it, right in front of this, where it says world. I'm going to click on that. I can click on dynamic 1. I can even rename it to give it something clear. Let's say, dawn. Okay. And so I can go over back into where my dynamic sky is here. And it should take a moment. Actually, it says it can't be found, so maybe I can't change that. Okay, so let's go and undo. Will undo my name change? Well, there's always a way to do things. So I'm going to go ahead and I undid that world entirely. Create. Maybe I should wait till it populates over here once I select it. So click on it there. Here we have it here. And don't rename it. Leave it as dynamic_1. Probably connects with other things. I'll play with that later when I'm off camera to see what it's doing. So down here in the node editor, I have it on the globe. I don't see anything right now, probably because it's off screen. So I'm going to hit the decimal key, and this is the procedural texture that we're seeing in our scene at the moment with the clouds and everything there. And as you see, it's very circular, and normally we don't see the clouds like that, but from the side and stuff, that's actually not too bad. It gets some clouds in there, and we're not going to be too picky about that right now, but definitely not perfect. This is very complex, as you can see, and this is a good example, though, of a procedural texture where you have all these elements you can click on with the left mouse button to move things around. You can actually scroll in to see where things are, and sometimes you can get ideas of how some of these work by following the paths, but basically with the node editor, things come in on the left side. It's input, right side, output. And so this one, of course, has a lot, and eventually they all go to one node where they go into your world output, in this case, surface. Okay, so anyway, those are kind of what's happening inside there. You could change these settings in here as well if you wanted to, but this makes a nice place for us to be able to change things. So I could change sky color. Maybe I want it a little deeper blue. Do that, and eventually that will render like so. I could change the horizon color. Maybe I'm doing this where there's lots of greenery, and we're going to select maybe a darker green on that. Put that in, and eventually it'll recalculate things. And your lights, especially when I move this around in cycles at first, you'll see like the big, huge blocks of like blue and things like that. It takes into account whatever the environment is and reflecting light off of things. But you can also change, aside from just those, you can actually do different colors or things like that for the sun. And so you can affect how the light looks there. I have in my outliner, I also have dynamic 1 as an option in there for that, where you can click on it using this. Can't turn it off or on though, but you can set up more than one, and you can switch back and forth between those adjustments and worlds. So like if I go up to the top here in dynamic sky, hit create, and create a second dynamic sky, and then I can choose it so I can have more than one type of sky to go between, and you could use that to make changes or try things out as well. And so anyway, I hope that's a useful tool for you. It gives us something a little bit more advanced than the sky texture itself. It lets us see some clouds in there. You can play with these quite a bit. The density probably does the opposite of what you think, where it was thick, now it's thinner. If I move this all the way down, it'll be thicker rather than non-existent. And you can mess around with the options, see what it does, try it out, have a little bit of fun with it. Don't worry too much right now if your scene does clipping, meaning that it's light, the image looks overexposed here, and we will actually use something in a later video to correct for that so that we can have brighter lights and still have it figuring out our lights here. If you've done anything with photography, you'll have a good head start on that, as that'll help you with our settings as we go. Anyway, we'll call that good for today, and we'll move on to the next one.